Today we will talk about Robert Frost's poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. This particular poem was written by Robert Frost in 1922, which was published later on in the year 1923 in his collection of poems named as the New Hampshire. It is a beautiful lyric poem, and you can say it is also like a conflict between the needs and demands of life and an eager desire to escape from all those duties and responsibilities. It is best known of all Frost's poem. This lyric comprises of 4 small stanzas. The first stanza, it talks about a traveler who is moving through a dense forest along with his horse. The entire atmosphere is very, very cold. The dark woods are filled with snow is falling, and the traveler is moving along with his horse. And he says, "Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods filling up with snow." The second stanza is like this: "My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year." Now Robert Frost here, he says that the traveler's horse is finding it very, very strange, because all of a sudden in between the journey his master has stopped, and the place is cold and barren. There is no grass to eat, there is no water to drink, the lake is frozen, and it is the darkest evening of the year. Now, darkest evening of the year, it suggests here 2 things. One, the first one is it is evening time, and most probably the Robert Frost, he wants to say that it is the last evening of the year. So that means it is 31st of December, which is usually very, very cold. So then the poem moves on to the third stanza, and it says like this: he gives his harness bells a shake. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound is the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. So the horse is shaking his harness bells just in order to ask his master that if it is by mistake he has stopped all of a sudden, broken his journey and stopped in the midst of these woods. It is absolutely calm and quiet except the ringing of the harness bells of the horse. The only other sound is the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Now downy flake is the flakes of snow which is falling from above, and it is gently caressing the earth. The last and the most important stanza is as follows: "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." Now this particular stanza is is highly symbolic, and it suggests deep thoughts about life and about death, which is an absolute answer, having a strange attraction for man. The traveler in this poem is also attracted towards this answer, but after some time he turns away from it, and because he decides with a certain weariness and yet with quiet determination to meet and face the needs and demands of life. Because according to Robert Frost here, life is very, very short. We have a very short span of life, and we are entrusted upon many with many duties and responsibilities which we have to undertake in our life. So we cannot retire, we cannot escape from our duties and responsibilities just in the midst and retire to sleep. Now sleep here also is very symbolic, and it means, superficially it means the sleep which we get after a hard day's work. And the deeper meaning is the final and the ultimate sleep, that is death, which mitigates, which lessens all the burdens and difficulties of our life. So this particular poem is a conflict between the needs and demands of life and an eager desire to escape. And the last stanza, the personal experience of a traveler, it also becomes a universal experience, which is very common to all of us. The last stanza of the poem is highly suggestive and symbolic. As I have said earlier, that Robert Frost, he was a nature poet. Now, when we talk about nature poetry, a very important characteristic of this type of poetry is that the poets and the writers, they used to hover in the world of imagination, and they never really wanted to come back to this world of problems and difficulties, worries. According to them, life was a burden. But Robert Frost is no doubt a nature poet, but note of escapism in his poems is only for a very short period of time. In this particular poem, if we talk about stopping by woods on a snowy evening, this poem also has this note of escapism, where he wants to retire, where he wants to escape from the harsh reality. But after some time, he realizes that no, this is not the way, this is not going to serve the purpose, because this life is short and we have to achieve, we have to undergo, we have to fulfill certain duties and responsibilities which have been assigned on us. So he, all of a sudden, he realizes that he has to come back to this normal life, and that is why Robert Frost, he asserts that the woods are lovely, dark and deep. No doubt, the woods have a magical attractiveness. They offer a respite to the traveler to stop his journey in between. But once again, he is forced to return to his normal life, where he says, and miles to go, but I have promises to keep. Now what are these promises? These promises are his duties and his responsibilities, the obligations which he owes towards himself, towards the society, towards the nation. So he is reminded of his duties and responsibilities, which are his promises, and he decides to come back, to return to his duties and responsibilities, and once again join this life